Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, what we'll be looking at are SQL constraints. Now, what are SQL constraints and all of it? I have to tell you as a theory. So this video will be a theoretical video where you will learn the different types of SQL constraints and how you use them and how can you write it using create table command and various things. So without any further ado, let's jump into the video and see what SQL constraints are. So let's start by looking at what are constraints. So constraints are used to limit the type of data that can go into a table, in particular a column. Now, why do you do this? So that you can have a check on what are the types that can go. This ensures the accuracy of the data in the table. Now, what are the different types of constraints? They're not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, default, and check. Now you learn all of these as you go ahead. If there is any violation of the data which is put in, let's say you have a constraint for a particular column and the data which you put in does not follow that constraint, then the action will not be performed and SQL will show you an error. Now how do you create a constraint? Now constraints can be created when you create that table itself by using that create table command or by using the alter table command to create that constraint after the table is created. When the table is created, how do you add the constraint? You add the constraint after the data type. So if it's column 1, then the data type, then the constraint is followed. And when it comes to alter table, it is similar. You do alter table, the table name. What you're doing, altering a column. So you say alter column, and then the column name, and then the data type. And then you can give the constraint followed by it. That's how you do it out here. So let's start off by looking at the constraints, by the first constraint being not null. By looking at the term of not null, you understand that this column cannot hold null values, because when you create a column, by default it will hold null values. But when you specify this, you say that whenever you insert, it cannot be null. You have to insert this value. So how do you do it? When you say create table, you say id, then the int, then you say not null. This cannot be null. Or similarly, using alter table, the persons table, you modify what column? The age column. Its data type is int, and you add not null to it. This is how not null is done. Next, we have is the unique constraint. When you say unique means that each value of this column has to be different from the rest. For example, if your ID in a bank, that is unique. Everyone has a particular unique ID. So that's how this works. Let's say you create a table called persons. Out there you'd say the ID cannot be null. That's by specifying not null. And after that you give unique. Here, as you can see, you have two constraints. It's all right. You can have two constraints. That is not a problem. It's just that you have to be careful when you spell it out and when you insert values into the table. And alter table, you can add unique to one column or multiple columns. So when you do it to one column, you just say alter table persons, add unique for what column? The ID column. When you say multiple columns, like let's say I want to have a combination of these two has to be unique. That's how you do it. So for that you have to give a constraint name. So you say alter table persons. I want to add a constraint. So add constraint, and the constraint name is UC underscore persons, and you give it has to be unique. What? To ID and the last name. So the combination of these two has to be unique. That's what unique does. Now next is primary key. This is a unique and it cannot be null. That's what primary key is. And this is what is used to like extract data from the table. A table can have only one primary key. Like unique, it can be one column or a combination of two columns. Now how do you create it? When you do it as create table, you can just put primary key followed by the column data type. When it comes to alter table, it follows the same rule as you see in unique, but the meaning of the primary key and unique is a bit different. Next is we have foreign key. Now what is a foreign key used for? A foreign key is used to prevent actions. So you have a link between a table, you want to create that, you use a foreign key and do that. Now how it's done is you have a primary key in a table. A column is a primary key and that similar column is followed in another table. Now that would be a foreign key when you use the foreign key term while creating it or altering it. Now the table which has the primary key is called the parent table, and the table which has a foreign key is called the child table. How do you create it? You can do it by using the create table command itself. So let's say you have a persons table and out there person ID is a primary key. you want to create another table called orders, and out here also you have person ID, and this would be a foreign key. So you say person ID followed by the data type. Foreign key, what it does is it references from a parent table which is persons, and what column? Person ID again. You have to keep in mind that the column that you use in the foreign key and the primary key need to be the same, meaning the name of the column has to be the same. Now we'll see how to create it by using the alter table command. For one column, it's a similar way. You say alter table orders, add foreign key person ID. You say references from the table persons and this person ID. So that's how alter table command is for one column. Now if you have multiple columns, how you say add constraint to what table, the foreign key to what column, what it references from, another table, and then the column name. This is how alter table for multiple column works. Next is a check. Now this is like a limitation. So you put a value range and you say this value has to be greater than or lesser than this constraint that you give. So how you do that using create command is you say age, let's say check, and the age has to be greater than or equal to 18. So that's the role you say when you create that table itself. Or you can do it using the alter table also. So when it's for one column, you say alter table persons, add check age has to be greater than or equal to 18. But let's say you have for multiple columns, you say add constraint, and what is the constraint's name, and then you say check. What you have to do, the age has to be greater than, and the city has to be London, let's say. So this is what the check constraint works for both the person, city, and the age. So that's how you do it. This is check command. When we come to the last constraint, which is default. Now the default constraint is used to set a default value. Let's say when you create that table or when you insert values, this value is not given, then you say, oh, by default is this. That's what the default command is. Now this applies to all the columns which don't have a new record added. So in create table, you say default followed by the default value that you want to say, or you can say alter table person, add constraint df, the default city, the name of the constraint, default London for what? The city. So you have set the table. Now you have to say for default for which column. So that's what this thing is. We went across 6 different constraints. In the next video, we'll look at how to actually use them in a table. Primary key and foreign key are 2 constraints that you have to know, because that's what many databases have. These are used to connect tables and share values between tables and all of them. So if you haven't understand, go back and look at how they are done, how they are created. And in the next video, we'll look at how to actually use them in a problem. And thanks for watching this video. If you really like this video, give a like. And if you want to know more about this, do write in the comment and do consider subscribing, because we have more such content coming up regarding web development and databases and various other concepts. Thank you.